Welcome, everybody, to our session 5 of our Season for Nonviolence series of talks with Arun Gandhi and Jonathan Jones. We've been thinking about you and hope that everybody has been having some meaningful opportunities for self reflection and learning and inspiration. We hope that it's giving you a sense of community and support through participating in the Season for Nonviolence, not just with the other men at the facilities both there at Groveland and also with all of you at Attica, but also people in the community who are also participating in the season. We can all do this work together and maybe shift the world in ways we couldn't predict. My name again is Kit Miller. I have a good fortune of working at the Gandhi Institute for Nonviolence and working with Jonathan Jones and Arun Gandhi. This session today is on King and Gandhi, and I'm going to ask Arun and then Jonathan to reflect on the following two questions. One is to ask you to speak about Gandhi and King's ideas of nonviolence. How are they similar and how are they different?
Well, I think Gandhi, started and worked in South Africa initially, and that's where he developed the idea of nonviolence as a way of resolving conflicts. And over the years, the more he practiced it, the more he discovered new aspects to the philosophy, and it kept growing and multiplying, and eventually it became not just a tool for conflict resolution, but a tool for personal transformation. And it still continues to grow and continues to incorporate many other aspects of life within this philosophy, which is a very good thing. Gandhi's work started in 1900s, early 1900s, turn of the 20th century. And he was assassinated in 1948. So Gandhi and King never met each other personally. Um, they were at different times in different countries. And so there was no opportunity for them to meet or talk about anything at all. But King was influenced by Gandhi from his readings of Gandhi's books and from the talks that he heard by very eminent people, African American people who had gone to India and studied Gandhi. And so he was influenced indirectly by Gandhi. But the important thing is that after the Montgomery bus boycott in 1959 and the success of that movement, the government of India invited Dr. King and his family to come to India and study Gandhi and meet people who had worked with Gandhi and learn from them what this philosophy is all about. And so Dr. King and his family and some activists from the African American community went to India in 1959 as guests of the government of India. And they went on a tour, went to see all the sites and all the places where Gandhi lived and worked. And one of those happened to be in the city of Bombay, where he used to come whenever he came to Bombay. He used to live in that house. It's called Mani Bhuvan, and that has now become a library and a museum. And people go there and pay their respects at the museum, and Dr. King and his group also were taken to that place. And on the second floor of that old building is a room that grandfather occupied. And that room has been kept in the same condition and furnished in the same way as when Gandhi was alive. And so when Dr. King was taken there and he looked into the room from the window, because people are not allowed to go inside the room, um, he expressed the desire to go in and sit in the room and meditate. And of course, he had to get permission from the director of the institute because people are not allowed to go in there. And the director said, since you are a special guest of the government of India, we will make this special request, but only you can go in, nobody else. And so Dr. King dismissed the whole group and told them to go and do whatever they wanted to do, and that he would catch up with them when he was done with the meditation. So he sat in the room and sat and meditated, and uh, soon it was time for the museum to close. And he showed no interest in coming out from the room. There he was just meditating quietly. So the director went up to him and asked him, "When are you planning to leave? Because we have to close and go home." And he said, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here the whole night." And the director was aghast, and she said, "How can you stay here? This is a museum. There are no facilities for you to sleep or anything." And Dr. King said, "Well, if Gandhi could sleep on the floor, I can sleep on the floor. If he could stay here, I can stay here. So let's not argue about this. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to sit here and meditate. You people can go and, do your own thing." So the rest of the group, the rest of the staff of the museum went home, and Dr. King was left alone in the library. He stayed the whole night there and came out of the room about 10 o'clock the next morning. And then he announced to the people that now I feel spiritually strong enough to come out to take leadership of the civil rights movement in the U.S. So that was the influence that Gandhi had on King. And of course, from then on, King used it in this country, and it has developed and grown, which is what all philosophies should be doing. It should keep growing and being, relevant to today. If a philosophy becomes a dogma and is dead, then it doesn't serve anybody at all. So I am glad that people here are working on that philosophy and evolving and changing and growing.
Thank you, Arun, for that story. Yes, yes. Thank you for that story. So, what I wanted to say about King is really from his writings in Strive Towards Freedom. You know, the Montgomery story, which where King writes about his intellectual pilgrimage to nonviolence.
Yeah,
And one of the things that like struck me about that story was that King talked about when he was younger, how he had heard about and seen Negroes. He was we was using the word Negroes back then, lynched, and how he seen and heard about police brutality, and how the criminal justice system had treated Negroes. And, you know, he was like, you know what, but I didn't let, you know, that type of anger and hatred like build up inside me. He said he wanted to go to work, but his father didn't want King to work in his factory. But he said that working in that factory was very instrumental to him because he was able to work around white people. And by working around white people, he learned that, you know what? I mean, like we in like this same boat together. Though they may not see that, I see that we are in the same economic boat, the same injustice boat, the same mistreatment boat together. But I mean, but they don't understand that right now. Some of them don't understand that right now. And then he went on to college and, you know, to do things like that. And then that's when he began his intellectual dialectical studies of different people. And then he landed on Gandhi. And I remember reading that he said that when he heard Gandhi, when he heard about the life and teachings of Gandhi, he used words like, you know, profound and electrifying. I mean, electrifying to the point where King talked about he had like, after listening to somebody, Dr. Johnson talk about Gandhi, he just went out and just bought as many books that he can, collect as many books that he can on the life and teachings of Gandhi and began to like read and study those books. But one of the things that came out of that was love, the way Gandhi had used love. And he said that that right there like changed his life because he always thought of love as like an individual thing. You know, he never thought about using love to like the way Gandhi did. Gandhi believed in love, Gandhi believed in nonviolence, and Gandhi believed in truth. And King was like, you know what, with what's going on here in America, you know, I could like apply those principles and bring about the same type of social change. So one of the things that King spoke about, and I want to just read a brief quote. He said, love for Gandhi was a potent instrument for social and collective transformation. It was in this Gandhian emphasis on love and nonviolence that I have discovered the method for social reform that I have been seeking for so many months. So he knew right there when he learned that he said this right here, this whole love component is what I was missing. And if I apply that love component to what I'm doing here in America, that right there will like put us over. That right there was like, that's what I'm missing. That one point right there, that right there will like put us over. So yeah, so that right there is what stood out for me. That right there is what struck me because when we think about the word love, I mean, like when you think about love, I mean, like when you hear about that, I mean, we think about love of our parents, a love of our spouses, love of our children, love of friends. But I mean, but when you think about love here, I mean, he's talking about love of humanity. I mean, he talked about love of all people. And that's what I think that King meant when he talked about beloved community. I mean, it wasn't like he was just talking about loving your neighbor, loving your community. He was talking about a huge, massive love of humanity, love of people all over the world, love of people that may even disagree with you, a love of people that may be in positions of power that are putting out policies that may affect you, creating laws that may affect you and hurt you. He is talking about love of them also. So I mean, this love concept is used as something that I'm still trying to wrap my brain around and still trying to understand it and apply it to my life. But that was one of the main things I believe that King had got from Gandhi, and that's very, very important as we go forward today. Because loving your enemy, the way King talks about, is very, very important. Because it's like, listen, we always talk about change, changing our own lives, trying to make social change and all that. But what about the people that we're fighting against, that we believe that we're fighting against? We're not really fighting against people. What we're really fighting against is systems and conditions that allow others, we believe, to oppress us or keep us in these states that we don't like. states that we want to fight against. So I mean, the love ethic is very important. And there was one thing that King said towards the end of his writings in that Strive Towards Freedom. And this is one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., where he said, living through the actual experience of the protest, nonviolence became more than a method to which I gave intellectual assent. It became a commitment to a way of life. Nonviolence became a way of life for King. I mean, based on that whole understanding of love.
Jonathan, can I interrupt for a minute?
Yes, please, add on.
I think when they talked about love, I think they meant really respect. Respect and love are synonymous. They're two sides of the same coin. You can't love somebody if you don't respect that person, and you can't respect somebody if you don't love that person. So when they talked about love for humanity, they really meant respecting humanity and treating them as human beings.
Yes, thank you for that. And I'm gonna just end there. I mean, is there anything else you want to say on that, Arun?
No, that's it.
So this right here concludes DVD number 5. DVD number 6 and 7, we want to hear from you guys inside. I mean, whatever questions that you may have that you want me in the room to reflect on. So, I mean, I'm hoping that you're having a very informative learning season for nonviolence. And when you hear from me in the room again in DVD number 6 and 7, it'll be to answer the questions that you have. Talk to you again soon.